What is the scariest/creepiest theory you know about? Story 1. The Vela Incident. September 1979, a U.S. Vela satellite detected a double flash of light over an area of the ocean between South Africa and Antarctica. The prior 41 double flashes observed by the satellite were from nuclear explosions, as this is what they were designed to observe. There also happened to be a typhoon happening in the area at the time, so it seemed like someone wanted to detonate it without being caught. The Carter administration reported that it was a natural occurrence due to a small meteorite hitting the satellite. However, many other independent sources, and even other countries, have reported that they did indeed find traces of fallout and radiation. Because of the geopolitical climate of the times, there's very strong evidence that it was in fact a joint nuclear weapon test carried out by South Africa and Israel, and the US scrubbed the information regarding it because they didn't want to paint their allies in Israel in a bad light for working with apartheid-era South Africa. Strangely enough, Israel and South Africa have never denied having nuclear weapons programs, nor have they ever denied a joint test being responsible for the Vela incident. Story 2. The theory that the last moments of consciousness before death can feel like a literal eternity, and where your mind can create entire realities from blissful to horrifying. So in a way, the threat of enduring a hellscape of eternal suffering is very real no matter what you believe. Story 3. If the human body senses trauma it is unable to combat, it will switch off metabolism, pump endorphins, and slip into a pain-free dissociative state. In essence, shutting down. It's been seen in air crashes and lots of places, really. Basically, your body can switch itself off. Don't some prey animals do this when they are caught? That's why they seem so unfazed about being eaten. I'm sure I've read something about rabbits not being likely to survive an encounter with a predator, even if they escape because their body is just pumped with so much crap. They have a heart attack anyway. It was on Reddit somewhere I saw it, so who knows how legit it is. Story 4. A lot of comments bring up the Fermi paradox to explain the lack of evidence of extraterrestrial life, when by all accounts, we should be seeing alien life all over the universe. Here's another unsettling explanation. If you're scuba diving above a coral reef and you know that there should be fish all around you, but you don't see any, it's most likely that they have learned that for some reason it's important not to be seen. And since you're a newcomer to this environment, chances are it's not you they're hiding from. Story 5. That all intelligent life ends itself. So, the theory started out with the Fermi paradox. Basically, there are so many planets in this galaxy, let alone the entire universe, that it is statistically impossible that we're the only planet that developed intelligent life. So, where is everybody? Well, the secondary theory is that every intelligent species reaches the point where they have a technology that can kill their entire species, and that the vast majority end up destroying themselves at that point. Those who survive this time in their history are so rare that we haven't found them, and they haven't found us. As a species, we reached that point in our history with the discovery of nuclear weapons, and we're at the height of risk during the Cold War, at least thus far in our collective history. But there are various technologies that could bring a species to this point in their history. This would mean that while so far we've survived, that it's statistically unlikely we will survive long term. Story 6. Cosmology can be disturbing. For instance, I recently learned of dead-end trips. There are some destinations that you shouldn't try for. It's possible to travel so far away from where you started that the expansion of the universe will exceed the speed you were traveling at. You can't return home because home is receding faster than you can travel. You can't reach your destination because it too is receding faster than you can travel. You can no longer get anywhere, only get further away from everything. You cannot reach any destination, even if you travel forever. Yes, this is because the universe is constantly expanding, and galaxies, neighborhoods, clusters, etc. are gravity bound. They stick together in distant clumps while other clumps move away. It's kind of like people in cars on a highway. You will remain a constant difference from however many people are in your car, or on your motorcycle, or in your school bus, but you will get further and further away from other vehicles. This means that if you are within a pocket that's bound by gravity, you'll always be an equal distance from everything else. But if you fall out of that car, you're not getting back in it, and you're almost certainly never getting into any other car either. Story 7. The universe could be dying, and we'd have no way to know until we just suddenly vanish from existence. There could be a sort of quantum energy wave. Can't remember what it's called because it's been so long since I read about it. 0 point collapse, maybe? Vacuum bubble burst? But whatever it is, it's an energy wave that starts at some point and spreads outward at the speed of light, annihilating any matter, energy, and even space-time in its path. Because the wave travels at the speed of light, it is invisible. we would have no way of seeing it coming, because any light emitted by it would hit us at the exact same time that the wave itself hits us. So all of a sudden, the sun might just vanish from existence. We wouldn't notice because the sun's light from 8 minutes ago would still be reaching us. 8 minutes later, the Earth just vanishes from existence. No warning, no trace. Story 8. More of a story than a theory, but it correlates to some of these. It makes me think some could be real. When I was younger, I had this little stuffed animal dog I named Rocky. One night, my younger sisters and I, who all slept in the same room so we could hang out together, were messing around, and I too handed over head-tossed rocks into the wall, directly in front of my bed. He hit the wall, slid down behind whatever was in front of my bed, and was never seen again. I immediately went to go get him, and he just wasn't anywhere. We tore the whole entire small room apart. We all saw the event occur. Over time, the room has been completely emptied out, everything in it rearranged, walls painted, everything, and no Rocky. He just completely phased out of existence. Makes me think he glitched out of the system or something. Story 9. The theory that there is an infinite number of parallel universes branching out at each moment with all possible outcomes for each situation. Let's say this is true and you play Russian roulette. 5 out of 6 of possible, you would live and one would die. But no matter how many times you play, there would always be versions of you that would survive. This would give those versions of you the illusion of immorality. This would mean that no matter the risks you would take, there would always be some version of you that would survive. If this is true, it would mean that you could live your life completely free of the fear of death and take on any risk. But the only way to know if this is true is to expose yourself to high odds of deaths repeatedly. Also, this would mean that as time passed, there would always be a more decrepit and invalid version of you surviving, maybe forever. Anyways, that or lizard people. Story 10. Sometime in the future, if we don't disappear before, humans will probably be able to bioengineer themselves to avoid death by old age. Most probably only the richest people would get this, founding an immortal elite of dynasties that will be able to rule nations by themselves, while common people simply keep dying as always. Now, almost everyone thinks of death as something normal and inevitable, as part of our nature. But then, in that hypothetical future, death will be seen as a disease whose cure it's kept away from common people by that ruling elite. Story 11. I had a professor in college who taught physics, and he explained why we will likely never come across aliens. The universe is about 14 billion years old. Over the course of that time, it's likely that intelligent life, besides life on Earth, has existed. However, 14 billion years is an insanely long time. Other life forms have probably risen and fallen thousands of times over. Extreme dynasties with technology we can only dream of having have probably existed. Life forms could have lasted hundreds of thousands of years and still not even be close to our timeline. The chances of other intelligent life forms existing at the same time as humans, in the 14 billion years the universe has hosted a possibility for life, is really unlikely. Statistically, intelligent life to have formed, prospered, or even existed at the same time as humans is extremely small, simply due to the absolute drop in a bucket that we are in terms of time. We may very well be completely alone in the universe. Story 12. The Dark Forest Theory. This explains the Fermi paradox, why we haven't seen any other advanced life forms, despite the vastness of the universe. Other advanced life forms don't send out signals into the rest of the universe because they're worried that something more advanced and dangerous is going to find them first. There's another idea that other civilizations know there's something out there, but don't send any signals because it has no reason to not wipe out the entire planet. There's a science fiction book based on this, and I think this quote explains it better than I can. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter, stalking through the trees like a ghost, gently pushing aside branches that block the path and trying to tread without sound. Even breathing is done with care. The hunter has to be careful because everywhere in the forest are stealthy hunters like him. If he finds another life, another hunter, angel, or a demon, a delicate infant to tottering old man, a fairy or demigod, there's only one thing he can do: open fire and eliminate them. Story 13. The Theory of Rocco's Basilisk. For those who do not know what this is, Rocco's basilisk is the idea of a future where an artificial intelligence is so advanced that it can determine which creatures did not try to bring the AI into existence sooner, even though they knew about potentially bringing the AI into existence. Any creature that knew about it but didn't help is to be killed as they tried to halt scientific expansion. The scary part about this is that if people make this Anyone reading this comment right now, as well as anyone else who knows about Roko's basilisk, will die. Although many people may say, well, then no one should make it. Problem solved, but someone may make it, so they aren't one of the people that didn't assist. Story 14, that we can sense when someone is watching us. So, when we're alone and we get that feeling, someone is probably watching you. My girlfriend has a story. When she was 13, she and her friend would watch horror movies in the dark of her room, a room that was located next to a fenced canal. One night, they both look over to see a pair of eyes through the blinds watching them. They run from the room screaming, only to be told by the father of the house that they had been watching too many scary movies. 2 months later, the mother of the house opened the door to a strange man who proceeded to abuse and end her. When he was caught, he admitted to having stalked the house for months before the murder. My girlfriend and her friend had actually seen this deranged murderer watching them. Story 15. I find numbers of stations to be pretty creepy. Their purpose is technically a theory, as the groups that broadcast them won't officially confirm even their existence for the most part. Essentially, spying is still a very real thing for most world governments. One of the most foolproof ways of delivering a coded message is through a one-time code, a code used just once before being discarded. Your spy has the key, you have the message, and once the key is used, it is discarded, and the next message is sent using a different key. Additionally, shortwave radio is an extremely secure way of sending these messages. It sounds weird that a radio station anyone with a shortwave radio can listen to would be considered secure, but the beauty of the method is that shortwave radios are ubiquitous, cheap technology throughout most of the world. What looks more suspicious, a person traveling with a radio or a person traveling with a sophisticated computer or satellite phone? While the signal can be received by anyone, it leaves no record of who received it, can't be intercepted, and traced by a middleman. They don't care if you listen, because the stream of numbers is nothing without the code. And because you're using a one-time code, it can't be cracked as it's randomly generated and used once. The only time a one-time code has ever been broken was an instance where the code was reused. Story 16. We've all pretty much heard of uncanny valley, the creeped out anxious feeling when you look at something that's humanoid, but there's something clearly wrong with it, like the wax figures at Madame Tussauds or that AI robot Sophia. But my favorite theory to come out of it is that we get that strange feeling because somewhere along human evolution, we've learned to be wary of things that look human but aren't. The leading theory on why humans experience uncanny valley, but most other animals don't, is that we're programmed to avoid dead people. Animals typically don't give a crap if something's dead. We, on the other hand, are naturally afraid of catching diseases from corpses. Mannequins, dolls, whatever, they ping in our subconscious as dead bodies. But to be honest, I secretly prefer the spooky theories about skinwalkers and aliens. An edit to clarify. A few animals are programmed to avoid or care about dead things. They're usually mammals, elephants, an assortment of apes, orcas. They share an understanding of death and seem to be conscious of it. Whether intelligent animals can feel the uncanny valley is pretty hard to verify, obviously. There aren't too many elephant mannequins around to test it. So, yeah, Kitty or Rover probably aren't aware of the uncanny valley in the same way. Humans seem unique in this sensation. In general, though, it's safe to assume that lizards, most insects, and your friendly neighborhood fish don't care if one of their own is dead. Story 17. In the US, but applicable anywhere. Both political parties are 100%. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts controlled by the ultra wealthy. Every single decision. Maybe not every individual person, but barring major upsets, every movement that happens is planned thoroughly ahead of time. Republicans will never ever ban abortion. Democrats will never ever enact gun control. These are boogeymen, they mean nothing, but are ways to control the masses and keep us just separated enough to not talk to each other or vote differently, but not so separated that we fully disengage with the other side. The think tanks, big data conglomerates, etc., all of it is used to know to a statistically significant level exactly how 99.5% of all elections, all congressional votes, all Senate votes, and all international policy will go. We only see behind the curtain when people who wield some power don't follow the plan. McCain saves Obamacare, shocked everyone. He was dying at the time, nothing to lose. Saudi leaders had Jamal Khashoggi murdered. All of a sudden, we had to abandon all U.S. international values, the plan we all need to care about at all times, because someone with power decided to deviate from being spitted. Story 18. That I might be the only consciousness that actually exists out there, and everyone else is some sort of AI. One version of this theory goes even further and much creepier, and suggests that mine or whoever's consciousness is just the result of the thoughts from a Boltzmann brain. What is a Boltzmann brain, you might ask? Well, given an infinite amount of time, anything and everything that might be possible, no matter how unlikely can and will happen, including the random emergence of a consciousness from a series of fluctuations in void. This consciousness is a Boltzmann brain. Perhaps I and my consciousness are one of these occurrences that has happened long after the death of the very last star and the evaporation of black holes in the dark, dead, cold universe of the far, far future. Perhaps everything I'm experiencing is either the pure imagination of or some mad fever dream of this Boltzmann brain as a way to cope with the never ending darkness. And even more terrifyingly, maybe I, the Boltzmann brain, will suddenly wake at any minute, and all of this will be gone in an instant. And finally, as a cherry on the top of existential dread, if the base human species has a limited run, then only a limited number of humans will ever live, let alone those who experience a life in the 21st century with experiences such as writing Reddit posts like these. However, with infinite time, not only could Boltzmann brains emerge, but if they can, then with infinite time, an infinite number of Boltzmann brains will emerge. This means that according to simple statistics, I have a much higher chance of being a Boltzmann brain than an actual human being with a consciousness generated by a flesh and blood brain. Story 19. I don't believe this myself, but it's creepy that aliens really do exist. The US government knows about it, and in exchange for slowly leaking alien technology, the extraterrestrials are allowed to abduct tens of thousands of citizens per year and mutilate cattle. A variant on this is that the aliens don't come from the stars. Instead, they live in vast underground tunnels and cave systems. Yet another variant is that the aliens aren't extraterrestrial, they are interdimensional. And what cultures used to call devils, demons, jinns, giants, and dragons, we call aliens today and ascribe a technological origin. Story 20. Okay, this is a weird one, but me and my dad saw this one guy come out of the gas station and he was bald and pale as crap with no hair at all. He was walking away from us as we were sitting in our truck eating, and I told my dad that he looked weird and resembled what people call the MIB, and that he might be an alien. And I know it sounds dumb, but this guy just didn't look real. He looked so odd. When I said that to my dad, the guy quickly looked at me like he had heard me. He was like 20 feet away, and we had our windows up. Right when he looked at me, I panicked and did the chin down nod that guys usually do, and he nodded back and turned away, and then drove around us once and did the index finger wave, almost like he knew what I had said. But that crap had me thinking for quite some time. I still bet to my dad that he was alien or something, because with his weird demeanor and looks, he fit the profile. Story 21. Not much of a theory, more of a conjecture, but fossilization is actually quite rare. It takes an extremely specific set of circumstances for a dead organism to even become fossilized, let alone survive intact to the modern day to be found by humans. Because of this, there are likely millions of species we will simply never know about, because none of them ever fossilized. For all we know, we might not even be the first intelligent species to evolve here on Earth. There could have been a species that formed a civilization at some point and then went extinct later on, but we'll possibly never know that because there are no fossils that formed/survived today. It probably wouldn't have been an advanced, industrialized civilization like the kind we have today, as we would have surely found evidence for it by now. But I could easily see something on par with ancient Egypt disappear completely after millions of years. Story 22. I don't know if it's scary in the usual sense, but the whole concept of entropy and its implications are creepy to me. So at the quantum level, you have billions of possibilities. Things that simply aren't possible at our usual scale are common. The possibilities narrow as you scale up in mass. Like an ant can fall from insane heights and survive, where an elephant can't jump up without risking broken bones. So it follows that at some point, as we scale up to universe size, there will be only one possibility, and from there, none. Calvinism through physics keeps me awake at night. Story 23. The last neurons in the brain can fire up to 72 hours after clinical death. What is classed as still being alive? Your heart stops or your brain activity stops? As a nurse, this plays on my mind. I always talk to the recently deceased, as I would do usually. Hearing is the last sense to go anyway, so chances are people can still hear for a short time after death. I have to confirm death on a daily basis. We check heart sounds, breathing, eye response, and pain response. But part of me knows that electrical activity is still going on in there. I'm a hospice nurse, and morbid thoughts are what I do best. Story 24. Not a theory, but a condition. Sometimes a pregnant woman's brain can just break. She begins to believe her child isn't hers, or that it's a demon or an alien. The worst part is these are perfectly healthy people who are otherwise happy and well adjusted beforehand. But when they get so far along in their pregnancy, the hormones can do something in their brain to change them completely. They become obsessed with the idea that their baby isn't theirs, is some foreign object invading their body. The idea that for some people the happiest time in their life can be a time of pain and madness for others is terrifying, especially since there's just no telling if or when it will happen. Story 25. The SCP Foundation's theory of non reality, 3001, that can be entered via a wormhole, becoming broken, and ejecting matter midway through it. It is a dead zone between realities that is, in a sense, infinite and contains no matter. Gravity or space and time has very limited interactions with, due to the reality scale of said space being nearly non existent. Matter decomposes over many years. Years spent in non reality are like seconds in our world, and living organisms slowly break apart whilst being mostly alive in the process. Being trapped there is a terrible fate where you are in utter darkness and loneliness for years as your body decomposes while you are still alive.